Commander is a format where you get to build a deck with 100 of your favorite cards, but how many of those are you actually getting to see in every game? 30? Maybe 40 at most? That means half of your deck is just sitting on the table instead of having your deck in your hand where it belongs. Today we're going to put our decks in a third stranger place, Exile, and we're just going to try and waterfall out from there. Is it clear that deck sounds like dick? Today we're putting together an Izzet Spellslinging deck with Eruth the Tormented Prophet as our commander. And Prophet, she will. Eruth here has a simple but straightforward ability. If you draw a card, you exile the top 2 cards of your library instead, and you can play those until the end of this turn. That means you've got to go fast. But going fast is fun, and it's much more fun than sitting and thinking about what spells you're gonna play. But if you want to know where I'm playing spells, guess what? It's in Orlando, between the 18th and the 21st of April. That's this month. I'm going to Cool Stuff Con as a featured creator, which means there will be meet and greets. There will be games of Commander aplenty. Stop by and see a bunch of other cool creators, like these. Wow. Who's your favorite? Mine too. I hope you said meme. No, I'm not my favorite creator who's going to be there. That's not true. Will I bring this deck with me? Maybe. There's only one way to find out. Honestly, I'll probably bring Iraxa, which is the mono-colored version of this deck. It was the first video we featured on Commander I Hardly Know, back when it was on a different channel, because I didn't know what I was doing with any of my channels at that point, and that's not that different from now. But if you remember Iraxa, we built a big old engine off of casting spells from Exile or from other places. And that's why she's part of this deck too. Anybody want to talk about her yet? Sure. Along with some other familiar friends from her deck. Mysterious Stranger is back. This one's just so fun. Basically, when he comes on the board, everyone has to give you an instant or sorcery spell from their graveyard, and then you cast one of them at random. It kind of works better if there aren't instants and sorceries in other people's graveyards, because then you just get to choose the best one from yours, and spoilers, you're going to have some good ones for your deck specifically. It's weird. It's like the cards in this deck work well with this deck. Laelia Blade Reforged would be a perfect commander for this deck if she just had blue in the color identity, but she doesn't, so she just has to be Eruth's best friend. She's got haste, and whenever you exile a card, you put a +1/+1 counter on her. That means she gets 2 +1/+1 counters every turn at your draw step at the bare minimum, while your commander's out. You can also exile a card at the start of combat, which means 3 cards per turn, guaranteed that you get to waterfall out. And then hopefully cast, otherwise you're boned. Party Thrashers should help you cast some of those spells, giving non-creature spells you cast from outside of your hand Convoke. There aren't very many creatures in this deck. It is mostly non-creature spells because we're mostly casting instants and sorceries. Also, beginning of your upkeep, you can discard a card to exile the top card of your library. Honestly, after turn 4, you probably don't have a hand anymore. But, for those first 4 turns, sure, go for it. Now, Feshni is one of the only cards in this deck that has a big high CMC cost. It costs 6 mana, sure, but it also doubles every spell you cast from exile, which is every spell for this deck, especially after you have 6 mana to cast now Feshni. Now, if it's a permanent spell, you just make a token copy and sacrifice it. That still has led to some bananas extra value. If you're looking for cuts at home and you really just want to run a leaner, meaner version of this deck, maybe send him to the curb, but I think he's worth it. Plus, look at that body. We've got some of our favorite exile sorceries. Galvanic Relay. It's great after you get a big storm count up. You can basically make sure that your next turn you are going to have insane amounts of cards to play. Glimpse of the Impossible gets you card advantage by putting 3 cards from the top of your library into exile, letting you cast them until end of turn. But if you don't, they turn into 0/1 Eldrazi Spawn that you can sacrifice for a colorless mana. So, even if you can't cast the spells, at least you got to ramp. Light Up the Stage exiles 2 cards off the top of your library. You can play those until the end of your next turn, which is longer than Eruth's stuff. Also, it has a spectacle cost, which will be pretty easy to hit. You just have to deal damage to someone this turn, and believe it or not, we have ways to do damage to other players in the deck. Who knew? Monastery Raid, very simple. You exile 2 cards off the top of your library. You can also pay a free running cost, but Eruth ain't swinging. She's too tormented. and too profitable. Impending Flux makes a return, getting more value the more cards you've cast from exile this turn. Since you cast all of your spells from exile, this becomes a board wipe that also does a bunch of damage to people's faces. Wren's Resolve is another one. 2 cards off the top of your library, you can play them until the end of your next turn. There's a lot of cards that do that. It's almost like this is an archetype that consistently gets support as new sets come out. Jessica's Will is a real game changer. Get ready for a game changer. This card has been here the whole time. It gives you a number of red mana equal to the number of cards an opponent has in their hand, or exiles the top 3 cards of your library and you can play those until the end of your turn. But if you've got your commander out, you get to do both. It's a very good card. Zoyawa's Justice lets you exile a permanent and then discover that spell's mana value. That means you waterfall out the top of your library until you find a spell that costs equal to or less than that card. You can use it as removal on someone else's stuff if you need to, or you can use it to go through your deck and cast more spells from exile if you're getting a bunch of value from that. There's a lot of pieces in this deck that get a lot of value from that. Blazing Crescendo gives a creature +3/+1 until end of turn, but also exiles the top card of your library and you can play it until the end of your next turn, or card advantage. That lasts 2 turns instead of 1. Delayed Blast Fireball does 2 damage to each creature your opponents control and 2 damage to each opponent's face, or it could do 5 damage instead if it was cast from exile. Haha, it will never be in your hand. You don't have a hand anymore. You have no hands. Look, Ma, no hands. Or Rich Stalactite is a mana rock, but you can also craft it with a bunch of instants and sorceries to cast more instants and sorceries from your graveyard, which can help you get more card advantage if you ran out of card advantage in your card advantage deck. Camille the Inner Sun is another one that's really expensive, but also I think very worth it in this deck because it stops your spells from being countered. And that's pretty invaluable when you're trying to sling out spells. You also get to discover 5 at each end step, which, you know, like, I'm not going to say that's bad, but it's really to stop the spells from being countered because that can ruin your day. It can ruin a lot of people's day. Finally, this is the last piece from the Araxa deck. It's Power Balance. That means whenever an opponent casts a spell, you get to reveal the top card of your library, and if it costs the same mana cost, you get to play it for free. It's free advantage, and in a pod of 4 people, it happens quite a bit. It also happens quite a bit in my mind that I have a land on top, and that I get nothing from this. But, you know, you're rolling dice. This is a risky deck with a risky strategy. So you might be thinking, hey Phil, why not just keep playing Araxa? You like Araxa so much. What does adding blue really add to this deck? It makes it better. Blue is just a color that's better than other colors. It just is. It's better. Is it better? Is it? Is the color combo blue and red. That was a pun. It's just simply better. It gets the card advantage. It gets the removal. It gets the counters. It gets everything you could possibly need. So that lets this have a lot more of a consistent engine than Araxa does. Araxa is my favorite of the 2 decks, but it's jankier. It's my favorite because it's jankier. This one works better, and working's good. So let's build an engine. Goblin Electromancer makes your instants and sorcery spells cost 1 less to cast. That's 1 colorless. There are a lot of 2-drop instants and sorceries that now only cost 1. Stormkiln Artist was not in the Araxa list, but it is a stupid card for a Spellslinger. It makes it so that whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you get to make a treasure token, which means any instant or sorcery spell that costs you 1 mana is now mana neutral. You use the treasure to cast a spell, and then you get another treasure. Stormkiln Artist is also part of Magic's sexiest couple. No, it's not Vraska and Jace. Get that out of here. It's Stormkiln Artist and Archmage Emeritus. Archmage Emeritus makes it so that whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, you get to draw a card, which means when it's out with Stormkiln Artisan, if you've got 1-drop spells, you get treasure tokens, and you get cards back in your hand that are probably more instants and sorceries that you can cast for 1 treasure token. It's absolutely silly. And they're looking for a third. Eruth is the perfect third for these 2 because it lets them be in the same deck with her Izzet color scheme, but she also doubles up on Archmage Emeritus's effect, putting 2 cards out in front of you instead of the 1. So you have more chances to hit another instant and sorcery to keep the momentum going. But things really get crazy when Bergie shows up. She's burgalicious, and by definition, she gives you lots of mana. I'm talking a free red mana every time you cast a spell. So, put Stormkiln Artisan out and Bergie out, suddenly these 1-drop spells you're casting actually give you mana. They are mana positive. And if Archmage Emeritus is out, you also just waterfall your deck out. And because you've been waterfalling your deck out this entire time and seeing twice as much of your deck as everyone else is, you're more likely to see these cards and put them together in a nice happy place. But there's other ways to make the value engine work. Ruby Medallion discounts all your red spells by 1 mana. Blue Medallion discounts all your blue spells by 1 colorless mana. It might seem like it's redundant to have all of these discounts in here. That's because it is redundant to have all of these discounts in here. Redundancy is good, and more than that, it's good. Of course, we're also going to ramp with a little Arcane Signet. Izzet Signet? Yes, it sure is. And Soul Ring. Case of the Ransacked, the Sandslacked, the Hash Slinging, the Bash Ringing. Case of the Ransacked Lab is a discount on your instants and sorceries of 1 colorless mana. And then, if you've cast 4 or more instants or sorceries in a turn, at your end step, it becomes solved, letting you draw a card when you cast an instant or sorcery spell. So you got this solved. You got Archmage out. Every time you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you're waterfalling out 4 cards that you get to look at and cast that turn. You're gonna find all the pieces you need of Exodia in order to obliterate. Oh, hey. How's it win? Yeah, casting spells is great, but you gotta win somehow. Well, there's a couple ways. The most likely one is burn. There are a number of creatures that just sort of burn your opponents out as you cast instants and sorceries, and because they're so small individually, they rarely get targeted for removal until there's a lot of them. So, Firebrand Archer deals 1 damage to each opponent every time you cast an instant or sorcery. That's a little annoying, but you gotta cast 40 instants or sorceries to kill me, so I'm not gonna counter that. But then you bring in the Kessig Flame Breather, who does 1 damage every time you cast a non-creature spell. This also includes artifacts and enchantments. Wow, whoa, and planeswalkers and battles. Someone said, oh, you didn't mention battles when you were talking about non-creature spells. Okay, whatever. You know what I'm saying. It really means instants and sorceries. You know that. That's what everyone uses it for. Whatever. Coruscation Mage does the same thing. It's from Bloomburrow, so it also has Offspring, which means this otter fucks canonically. And you can make another little baby otter that does the same thing. Uh-oh, are you seeing what's happening here? The first effect means we gotta cast 40 instants or sorceries. Oh no. But if we get 2, then it's only 20. That's still a lot, but it's a lot more doable. But then the Coruscation Mage comes out. That's 3. Oh, that's 4. That's 10 instants and sorceries. Okay, this is looking scary now, because every time you cast an instant or sorcery, you're dealing 4 damage to each opponent. That's pretty nuts. Gutter Snipe does 2 damage to every opponent. It's on instants and sorceries, it's not on non-creature spells, so Soul Ring won't trigger it. But that would put us up to 6 damage per instant and sorcery, which is less than 7 total spells cast. I mean, you would need to do 7 to round it up, because it would be 38. No, it wouldn't. Phil, you fucking... God, there's a reason I don't do math. Whatever. You're gonna leave that in too, aren't you, Kate? God damn it. Fine, whatever. Whatever, embarrass me in front of everyone. I don't see if I care. Burning is a great way to kill your opponents, or just do damage to them as they're all hitting each other. Because, you know, they're also going to be hitting each other. You don't have to do all the damage to everyone at the table. I also threw in a backup win con. It's Thassa's Oracle. Thassa's Oracle has a lot of text on it, but basically, if you don't got no cards in the bottom of your library and cast Thassa's Oracle, you win. A lot of people think it's a sweaty card. It's a combo piece. It's degeneracy. It is a game changer. I think it's rude to not win. I think it's rude if you waterfall out your entire deck. If you spend 10 minutes reading every instant and sorcery in your deck, sending out more and more cards with more and more card advantage, and you don't have a way to end the fucking game at the end of it, god damn, you're the worst. So yeah, I put Thoracle in here, and Thoracle's in here, so you can move on to the next game eventually. Or Iraxa. Iraxa is a great win con. She might not seem like a win con because she's an uncommon, but Iraxa makes a ton of little alien dudes. And those alien dudes are gonna do some serious damage if you've got, like, 20 of them that get another +1 from Battle Cry, and they become 3/2s. That's pretty big. Now here's the deal, folks. I am not going to go through every single instant in sorcery in this deck. I just simply don't have it in me. So what I will do is I will go through the funny ones. Grape Shot's actually less funny. That's just more of another win con. It's got Storm, letting you copy it for every other spell you've cast this turn. So if you've cast 20 instant sorceries, you get 20 copies of Grape Shot. Each one does 1 damage to any target. Not bad. Gitaxian Probe does not have to cost you any mana. You can simply pay 2 life and draw a card. Oh, sorry. Put 2 cards out from the top of your library into exile, and you can cast them until end of turn. It's just a way to keep the momentum going. Oh, also, if you have Bergie out, you still get a red mana. And if you have Stormkiln Artisan, you still get a treasure token. And if you have Archmage Emeritus, you still exile 2 more cards. Oh, and you get to look at an opponent's hand, so you'll know if they have counterspells to stop your shit. Burning Inquiry costs 1 red mana. Every player gets to draw 3 cards, and then they have to discard 3 cards at random. If your hand is empty, the discard thing doesn't happen to you. And those 3 cards you drew, that's actually 6 impulsed cards off the top of your library that just stay there. You get so much more advantage, and that perfect hand that your buddy sculpted across the table, 3 of those cards are going in the bin. They might lose all their lands. They might lose a bunch of stuff that they were really counting on being able to cast. It's funny, because it's mean. Goblin lore. Imagine goblin this lore. Lets you draw 4 cards, but then you gotta discard 3 cards at random from your hand. You don't have a hand. You don't have hands anymore. So you just get to impulse draw 8 cards and get to see the top 8 cards of your library. Ha ha. Desperate Ravings, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. Just kidding. You don't discard. Just kidding. You impulse draw 4. Frantic Search is one of my favorite cards when you play it right. You draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards and untap up to 3 lands. Is the thing. No, you don't. You impulse draw 4 cards, probably discard no cards. If you do have cards in your hand, you still have to discard them. I'm not saying that you get exempt from that, but you probably don't. You probably don't have cards in your hand. And then you get to untap 3 lands. This costs 3 mana. But if you've got discounts on the board, it could cost 2 mana. It could cost 1 mana, which means you also could gain 2 mana and impulse draw 4. I like that. Brainstorm, draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand back on the top of your library. Impulse draw 6 cards, and you don't even have to discard cards if you have cards in your hand. Just put them back on the top of your library so they're still there, they're still in the game, you can grab them later. Wowie, what a spell for this deck. Faithless Looting, draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards, It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that for us. That's what I've been explaining. And one final card to make all those draw cards even more funny. There are more draw cards in the deck, by the way, that I just didn't talk about because they just sort of draw you a card and keep your momentum going. But this card is Teferi's Ageless Insight, which means that if you would draw any card other than the card you draw during your draw step, you draw 2 cards instead, which doubles up your drawing before doubling up your drawing again with Eruth. So if you were to cast Brainstorm, you would draw 3 cards and put 2 cards back on the top of your library, right? Well, you would draw 6 cards because of Teferi's Ageless Insight, which means you would actually impulse draw 12 cards, more than 10% of your deck for 1 blue mana. I guess you also have to have Eruth and Teferi's Ageless Insight out. But you can sort of see where you will find all of your discount pieces, all of your value pieces, get those out, prioritize getting them out, and then just kind of waterfall out and either burn people down with all of your burner archer people or Thassa's Oracle. You don't have to feel bad. You don't have to feel bad if you kept the game going forever. Another thing that's worth noting, if you're worried, oh no, what happens when I run out of cards in my deck? And I have to draw a card, because that will make me lose, because those are the rules. Well, Eruth means that you don't draw cards. So if you're worried that you're flying too close to the sun like Icarus, as long as no one's removing Eruth, you're fine. It's fine. You're not in trouble for this at all. I decided to make Eruth the Izzet commander for a couple reasons. Number 1, though, is just how fun she is. She is really fun. Number 2, though, is we basically just got to reuse so many great cards from the Araxa deck, and I think that's a big deck building tip I would give to people at home. Start with monocolored commanders. Have an idea for what you want to do for your multicolored commanders later, but start with something monocolored so you can save money on lands. Because even though Jessica's Will does not impact the budget of this deck because it was in a previous deck, and Camille the Inner Sun does not impact the budget of this deck because it was in a previous deck, because we had to buy lands, this is still coming in at $118. It's still over budget. Because a land base for a 2-color or more deck, if it's good, is probably more than $100. Now, is this unplayable if you just use common lands? No. It would work fine, probably. But I think you should just treat yourself every once in a while to a $10 land, $15 land, God forbid a $30 land. You just gotta do it. You just gotta do it at some point if you want to keep your decks up to competitive snuff with everyone. Or you can get the HP Secret Lair and instead of spending $118 on a deck, spend $118 on a printer. Do proxies. It's something I would never say because it's so wrong. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, subscribe for more. We're going to be doing more deck talks like this all the time. Join the Patreon if you want to vote in the polls. This one beat out the Rakdos deck. We'll be doing the Rakdos deck eventually, but if you want to decide to get a video up earlier because of your favorite color combos, voting is the place to do it. It's also just a good place to support the channel, and we could use your support because we're hiring new editors. You know, I don't know if you've noticed, we've been pumping out a lot of videos on a lot of channels lately, and that costs money. So if you like that kind of stuff, please support us. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.